Do I think D&D places a disproportionate amount of burden on the DM compared to the players? Depends on what kind of good DM, what kind of good players you've got. But in general, yes. A lot of Dungeons & Dragons players think that they are being told a story by the DM that they then simply need to continue reacting to. When a good Dungeons & Dragons session is a collaborative effort between the Dungeon Master and the players. The players can tell the DM a story just as much as the DM can tell the players a story. A good Dungeon Master gives the players the tools they need to be able to progress the story as much as they can themselves. It's a collaborative effort. My players may not put in as much prep work, but they do work hard inside the game. Absolutely. The Dungeon Master effectively plays the world with how the world reacts to the players. But in order for this to be relevant, the players need to interact with the world in such a way that the world can effectively be reacted. Or reactive. That's a good way of putting it. The cognitive load on a DM is huge. You are trying to juggle a huge amount of stuff all together. And it's relatively difficult to balance the amount of stuff you're expected to do as a DM. So what's remarkably important? Hello, come here. What's remarkably important as a Dungeon Master is to say to the players, look, the Dungeon Master should be enjoying playing D&D as much as the players are. The Dungeon Master should be having just as good a time. And one of the ways to do that, one of the easiest and best ways, I think, to do that, is for the players to not try and beat the Dungeon Master, but to explain and to help them see that they are part of this collaborative effort. As a DM, I love it when my players make suggestions, give me ideas, see what they want to do, interact with the world in a way that lets me respond to it. What I don't want my players to do is sit there and just say, what happens next? Okay, and I'll... If I describe a really complicated, scenario and a thing to them, and then someone just says, I want to hit it with my sword. Okay, describe how. The process of Dungeons & Dragons is writing an adventure together. It's a collaborative storytelling experience. It is a group daydream. We are passing around the book, the story, as we write it. And so when I pass you the story to write your bit, I want you to write the best thing that you can. I want you to write an incredible part of it. I don't want you to just write one sentence and pass it back to me and say, carry on, tell me more, keep going, because that is a selfish way to do it. Don't just say, I load up my bow and shoot it. Tell me how you're thinking, how you're feeling. Tell me what you're aiming at. Tell me what memories you have when you fire that bow. Tell me what the arrow is like. The more you can give me, the more I can give you. You are not an audience member watching a film. You are one of the creatives also creating. And that's what I think so many players forget. You are not a passive observer within this world. You're an active participant in the creation of it. It's okay if you say, I want to hit him with my sword, it's okay if you don't even draw your sword. One thing that's really important, and I try to explain this to people, is armor class does not mean that the attack doesn't hit. Armor class can sometimes mean the attack hits and your armor does its job. People think that when you roll for a success, what you want happens, and when you roll for a failure, what you want doesn't happen. That's not entirely true. Success and a failure actually means the level of kind of positivity, negativity, and expected results that you get with this. If your players roll to pick the lock on a door and they fail, have them pick the lock on the door, but there's a lot of guards behind it. If your players roll to pick the lock on the door and they succeed, have it so when they go to have a look at the lock, they look through the lock first and realize there's a ton of guards behind it. The roll for failure and success doesn't necessarily mean the adventure has to continue in this way. What it can sometimes mean, and what I like it to mean, is the players gain or lose an amount of knowledge based on that specific thing. Night Sky Sash binds when equipped. Stamina and intellect, I'll greet it. So I think it's very important that you understand that the process of D&D is a collaborative effort. Also, if you're a Dungeon Master and your players have armor, and their armor classes say, 14, and the enemy attack them and the enemy roll 13, don't have it where the enemy miss. Have it where the enemy describe the narrative of the enemy hitting them and the player's armor doing its job. So like if someone's wearing leather armor and the enemy go to punch them and they miss, you can still have it so they hit them, knock the player to the floor, but the player stands back up, dusts themselves off and realize that their armor absorbed the blow and they took no damage. that is still armor working and doing its job. Armor class does not mean hit or miss. It means, did your armor do its job or not? Having the attack miss is just one thing that we can use within that. Like, if an attack misses a paladin, if you have a player that is tanked up in physical armor and the enemy roll to attack and they miss, don't just have it say the enemy attack misses. You can have it say the enemy attack lands powerfully on your shield, but you were able to bring it up just in time. You hear this, powerful ringing of metal, this clanging, but you take no damage. That's fine as well. And I think it's really important to understand that the more visceral you can get with combat, the better. What's the difference? Well, that is a big difference in a Dex AC save and a med heavy armor save. Dextorio, I agree with that if you're playing it purely mechanically, but you can also as well play it narratively. I play a lot of my Dungeons and Dragons games narratively. I try and play it as narratively as I possibly can. And it's okay if you don't understand all the rules as well. Remember that you really don't need to understand all the rules to play D&D. You can just make a lot of stuff up. You're describing the Open Legends RPG set. Every single RPG rule set has tried since the dawn of time to codify the process of human imagination. Ultimately, very few of them will ever succeed fully. They will give you ideas that you can then bounce off. When people say, oh, what you're describing is this and what you're describing is that, what I tend to hear is that thing has been codified within this rule set. But ultimately, no rule set is ever a replacement for your imagination. You can sit down with literally no rules and make up a game of D&D, and it's totally fine. That works as well. When I find it weird when people say we're playing with this rule set or we're playing with this rule set, because then it's a mechanical experience as opposed to a narrative one. I personally prefer the Dungeons and Dragons adventures that I run to be narrative experiences first with mechanical undertones based on the games. I mean, generic user role-playing system. Used to have a DM who couldn't comprehend how time worked in combat. Time was broken down into 6-second bursts for each person. Nope, it all happens at the same time. So one thing that I try and do whenever I run a Dungeons and Dragons game, and this is super important, is... There we go. When I have... And this is why I limit my games to at most 4 players. Whenever a combat round happens and player 1 wants to do something, they describe what they do. When player 2 then does something, I describe it happening as about 20% into the action of player 1, and I remind them of that. And then when player 3 happens, we have actions into that as well. So I have to always be reminding them. It's like a recap. You got the Daggerheart core book, excited to run a game with it. Yeah, cool. Learn the rules. Read as many books as you can, read as much stuff as you can, work out how it all works together.